Go ahead.
Good morning. Today is Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Commissioners Court is meeting in special open session. Would you please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Judge, do you have any opening comments for us this morning?
No, just welcome. This is round two of our budget sessions, and I thank you. Yesterday was very productive, very efficient, and so I'm hoping for the same to happen today. So good luck to all of you, and I know that we owe it to our public that we as transparent as possible, and we let them know what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you very much for your work today, and commissioners, thank you for your work as well. Thank you.
Sure. Item number 3 is public comment. We have nobody signed up for public comment. We'll take no action on item number 3. Item number 4 from the regular agenda, discuss and take appropriate action on the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget for the County of El Paso, Texas.
Thank you, Caesar. Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. We made a lot of progress yesterday, and we appreciate the feedback that the court provided. Today, we will give an updated budget versus auditor projection. We'll review the tax rate options and impacts again. We'll go over turnover rate comparisons, base salaries for elected officials, elected official wage rate compression, and comparisons against other counties. We will give you the budget impacts for various ways of implementing elected official wages when Commissioners Court is included or carved out. We will also ask for action on elected official wages today, as it is time sensitive for publication and notification requirements for our salary grievance process. We will also ask for direction on the amount to include in the final budget for the van pool benefit for employees. We'll ask for approval to place an additional $100,000 in budget/capital for the coffee shop build out, and $76,000 in contingencies for leasing space for the district attorney for up to 1 year. We'll also ask for your approval to include the recommended wage adjustments and new positions in the final budget we'll be bringing back on September 12th. We'll also want to discuss fund balance and seek your approval to bring a final budget with a lower fund balance that we project will be just under 8% by the end of the calendar year when the auditor closes out fiscal year 2022. And to show you the auditor projected balance and impacts, we'll also share our budget register. And finally, we will remind the court that you still have the pending item on the meeting with UMC for August 16th, just to confirm you still plan to have that joint session with their board. Do you have any questions for me before I turn it over to Sam?
Not at this time, Betsy.
Thank you. Sam? Here, will you go ahead and read in the elected official item?
Item number 5, pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code, Section 152.013B, discuss and take action on the proposed annual salaries, expenses, or allowances for elected county and precinct officers for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2022. Any proposed salary or allowance increases will be published in a local newspaper of general circulation. These salaries and any proposed increases would take effect on October 1st, 2022, and upon the adoption of the county budget.
Morning, Judge,
Good morning,
Commissioners.
Sam.
Sam Trujillo with the Human Resources Department, and like Betsy said, welcome to day 2 of the August budget hearings. And the term used, Judge, I think was round 2. Maybe that's more appropriate description. But yesterday, the Human Resources Department presented the court with our final budget projections on several items. And during the presentation, the court had a few questions that we would like to address quickly this morning, along with correction to one of the slides. So if it's okay with the court, we'd like to jump right into the information. And first up today is Michelle Cochran, who is a Deputy Human Resources Officer for the Human Resources Department, that will present our latest turnover information.
Well, welcome, Michelle.
Good morning, Judge. Thank you
morning.
so much. Judge, Commissioners, for the record, Michelle Cochran with the Human Resources Department. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. As requested, we sought the turnover rates for other Texas counties and entities within El Paso. This slide will show you how we compare with those we were able to obtain data from. As you can see, and as Melissa stated yesterday, we are at a healthy turnover, which is standardly considered to be a 15% rate. Historically, with the exception of fiscal year 21, we do tend to hover around the 11 to 12% range. The spike in fiscal year 21 was in part due to an increase in the average number of retirees we saw that year. Further, as presented last month, around 30% of our separations are retirees, which does differ from your standard turnover, if you will. The other top-cited separation reason is for other jobs. However, I would like to point out to the court as you go through the budget today or this week that the employee benefits that are provided are often highlighted as a positive the vast majority of the time with the exit interviews that we do get. That concludes the turnover portion. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to oblige at this time.
I guess, as always, Michelle, just if you could talk just briefly about any plans to ensure that we continue in the right trend, just for the public to know that we are extremely conscientious, right, that things are happening throughout the economy, and you know, we're losing people, hard to hire people, and those kinds of things. So just a quick synopsis of what your thoughts are going forward.
Of course, Judge. We are conscientious. We do our best to do exit interviews with every employee that we have leaving the county and truly applying any feedback that they have for us, whether it be working directly with that department or doing surveys if we see the need in regard to benefits. Now, as far as our recruiting trends, as we did present last week, we are seeing a reduction in applications, as everybody across the country is during this time. I do want to highlight that our staff was recently asked to sit on a national panel for NeoGov, which is our application system who operates governmentjobs.com, to talk about what we are doing here at the county due to the fact that our time to fill was among the lower rates across the country for the entities that NeoGov does serve. And so we are brainstorming along with our fellow counties on what we can do to improve this next fiscal year. We are working on a social media plan to increase our recruitment efforts so that we can get that outreach out there to ensure that we are not only retaining but attracting the A+ workforce as outlined in the court strategic goal, and we are passionate about that as well, Judge.
Well, thank you, and I'm very proud of the work of HR, and as we know, the ambiance is very important, is how they feel here at work, and I know you keep an eye on that, not only on your side, but helping the elected officials with any challenges and issues that they might have. So thank you for your work and your team's work.
Judge.
Thank you, Judge. It's our pleasure to serve. I'm sorry, Betsy.
I'm sorry,
Betsy.
Michelle. I was just going to add, based on the court's direction, something else you all have driven for that we're working on are, I actually have a draft policy from HR right now on paid parental leave or family leave. That's a program that the court's been driving on. It's part of our strategic goals. We have that policy in draft right now under review. We have also, as I mentioned yesterday, the court is picking up the majority of the increase in health insurance as medical costs have continued to rise. And I will say, I've had an opportunity to be around several other counties and just talk to other employers about their response to the pandemic. And the court was extremely quick and very understanding and family-oriented when it came to responding to the pandemic. There were laws that were passed that the court had already taken action to exceed what they required during the pandemic. So the HR team reacted quickly. The court asked for action quickly. It's just an example of, when I was orientating with Minnie yesterday, I said that value that the court has, that goal that the court has that says value the El Paso County family, just like what the judge said, we don't just put it on a piece of paper. You absolutely live it. And you can see that, even if our applicant pool is down, you can see that in the applicants we get, where they're applying from. They're coming to us from other major employers. They're interested in being with us. And so I think we can do more to collect data to show that trend and where we're getting applicants from. That would give the court, I think, a lot of information. But it's your continued commitment. I also shared the Glassdoor comparisons. On Glassdoor, they think our CEO is Greg Abbott, and that's one of the few categories that were rated lower than some of our counterparts. Otherwise, they think the culture is better, the pay is better, the experience of the county is better than some of our other public sector counterparts in this area.
Yeah, that was an excellent study. And I guess when you're looking at turnover, the best indication of how you're doing is people wanting to come into your organization, because that means our county employees are telling other people about their experience. So I think we're on the right track. And like I said, our commissioners have extremely, been very supportive of having the right workforce, because we know that quality workforce has a lot to do with, being productive, being efficient, looking for saving opportunities and other things. So it all works together towards what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry, Michelle.
Thank you. Go ahead, Michelle.
That's okay. That's okay, Betsy. Thank you for adding those additional items that we do have on the cusp coming up. If there are not any other questions, Judge or Commissioners, at this time, the presentation will be turned over to Ms. Elsie West to discuss elected official salaries.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a
Welcome.
wonderful day.
Welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Elsie West, Human Resources. Yesterday, the Commissioners Court had some questions on the elected official salaries presentation. We have prepared some updates that we would like to share with Commissioners Court this morning. This slide shows the DA's current salary. As mentioned yesterday, Commissioners Court may supplement the district attorney at a higher pay rate following criteria based on the state statute. The criteria could include a reduced portion of the state salary dependent on contributions by the county. This slide is a correction to the slide presented yesterday on the elected official salaries. This slide only includes base salary. The slide presented yesterday included the benefits and the fringe. Raising our elected officials' pay by 8% with an impact of $306,000 has been included in the budget projections. If you adopt a 5.5% for Commissioners Court and 8% for all other elected officials, the budget impact will be $287,287.12. If you adopt a 5.5% increase across the board for all elected officials, the impact would be $215,171. This increase would prevent wage compression and keep pay in alignment with other county positions. The next two slides will show the top 9 counties in comparison to El Paso County. These numbers are based on the FY22 increases that were given. What is being presented are the county name and salary for each elected official. To the right, in the little gray box on the top, is the average base salary, the average base salary difference, and the average base salary percent difference between El Paso County and the Texas County average salary based on position. For example, I'm going to pick on the constable, which is at the very top. The El Paso County constable has a salary of $94,699. The average of the other 9 counties is $117,796. So the average difference is $23,097, with an average percent difference of a negative 20. This means that we pay 20% less than the average 9 counties. Please note that when we're comparing the county attorney, some of these counties have a district attorney-county attorney combo, and the counties mentioned in this slide do not provide hospital district legal oversight. If you will notice, Hidalgo is the only county that pays less than El Paso County in most of the cases. We also reached out to the other Texas counties to gauge increases that they are proposing for FY23. As of right now, we have an average of a 5% increase or what's being proposed out there. A lot of information. Our last slide represents a summary of the current salary of elected officials in comparison to the top 9 most populous Texas counties' base salaries and the percent of wage compression within their own departments. In prior years, approved pay increases has not only kept the elected official's salary from falling below the market, but has also kept a smaller percent of compression from occurring. To prevent compression, staff has listed similar pay increases as were given to employees be also given to elected officials.
I'm sorry, can you explain what the percentage amounts are under the column that says internal current compression?
What we're looking at is we look at, I'm going to give it an example in Betsy's office. We would look at the position that's the department head, then we would look at who's next in line, and we would look to see what that difference is in that compression. So if we're looking at, let's say, the constables, we have the constable and then we have the sergeant. So the highest paid sergeant that's out there compared to the constable creates that compression of that 1%.
That means
Meaning
there's
that the
a
highest
1%
paid
difference
is paid
in there?
higher than.
Right, it means.
So when it's a positive, I'm sorry, Elsie, but when it's a positive, which is in red, that means the person immediately lower than them is making more than the elected official. When it's a negative, there's a spread. And in compensation, in classification and compensation, there's elements that you expect an average of somewhere around 25% spread.
So the positive numbers are in red,
Ma'am.
except for the district clerk. That's a negative number, but it's in red, and the sheriff too.
And that's because it's within that 15%.
Okay, within the 15%. Okay. Thank you.
That concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Commissioner Leon, please.
Betsy, what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is that the court adopt an 8% across the board for all elected officials. I also recommend, and I know I'm recommending this against your wishes, but I recommend an 8% across the board. That helps, I mean, well.
Explain why.
Sure. The reason why I recommend 8% across the board, well, there's multiple factors. One, there's the wage compression when there's employees who report to these elected officials. The other reason is cost of living right now is 9.1%. I did see an updated report this morning that it looks like it might be trending down, but it's still at 8.5%. So the same dollar that any person made a year ago goes 8.5% to 9.1% less far than it did a year ago. And there's a lot of other issues behind how you encourage people to serve in elected official roles. And it limits, in my opinion, it limits who can run for office when you don't keep pay at a level. All of you work full-time in your elected official position. This is a full-time job. And I see that it eliminates people from being able to do this job if it doesn't compensate them at a rate that pays for a full-time job, because you really can't hold another full-time employment and do what you all do. And that's true for the sheriff, the district clerk, the county clerk, your tax assessor. So that's just in brief why I think it's important that you do an across the board. Also, because we fall further and further behind, and we talk all the time about bringing up wages in El Paso for our entire community, and then we need to apply that same practice in our own workforce. And you're very good about doing it for your employees. So I think that's important. We fall behind, and then when we look at ourselves compared to the rest of the state, we get really far down, and then it's extremely difficult vote on a future commissioner's court. Your vote is a one-time across the board with everybody being equal. That's already difficult. It's even more difficult when a future commissioner's court has to vote to bring itself up 20%, just to get up to a 70% or 80% equal to the other parts of the state. So I know that's a long spiel, but those are some of the things I've seen over my history here that make me come with a recommendation that you do it across the board.
No, and you've touched on all the HR principles of, not falling behind, making sure it's attractive, making sure that it's not very motivational to be living on, the salary, what's happening now with inflation, and living on this salary and the inflation going forward. I mean, so there's a lot of things. And you said something very important, that is, it's for the future also of the individuals that are coming in as elected officials. But could you talk a little bit, because I think one of the most important things is that HR had a plan that they were working on, and we became part of that plan. And so when we voted one time, a couple of years back, on the increases, including ourselves, it was not part of our decision to say, okay, this is what we want or don't want, but we were adhering to a plan that had started years ago to catch up and to be in the right place. And so if you could address how that all came about, the surveys and everything, that you decided that you were moving towards that 80%.
Yes, sir. So at the time it started off, we were trying to get to just 70% of the wages of other Texas counties for our elected officials. And so we started with 70%. We did the comparison of the top 10 minus Harris County and looked at what the average wage was in those communities for each elected official's position. And at that time, we then began working towards making sure everybody was at 70%. And that actually was there was a lot of controversy publicly, because the court was having to give itself a pretty significant bump. And it was giving it to everyone, but of course you all were focused on. But that brought you all up to the 70%. And then after that, we started working on a goal to move towards 80% of what other Texas counties pay for elected officials. And we began working over that over a few years. And we did get up to the 80%, but then what we had is we also had the wage compression. Because if somebody was already at 80% and we were giving a different increase to their employees, then it was creating wage compression where people were actually surpassing the sheriff and the county attorney that reported to them. And so we started looking at any time we're going to do an across-the-board increase, we need to at least consider that amount for our elected officials. And so that's been the approach that we've been taking to try to keep parity and to not slip back and force a future court to make that difficult decision to get up to even 70 or 80% of what the rest of the state is making.
Yes, Commissioner Leon?
Elsie, can you get that slide back on the line? And Betsy, we're talking about 8.5% across the board?
Go up one more, Elsie?
8.
Yes, sir, at 8, up one more. And one more. Thank you. At 8% across the board, which would again help with the wage compression issue and keep the court closer and all elected officials closer to what's happening with the consumer price index, it would be a county-wide impact of $306,000, just under $306,000. And this is already included in the proposed budget with fringe benefits.
You know, I was looking at, and I appreciate what you just said. I was looking at the county attorney salary, the sheriff's salary, and one or two others that I'm glad they're also included in this 8.5% because in no way, because of their experience, their tremendous job performance, that they be cut out.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to make a motion to give all elected officials minus the county court, which is the commissioners and the county judge. We can vote on that separately. And I say that for transparency. The motion to elevate their pay 8.5%.
8%.
8%.
That's what I said, 8%.
Yes, sir.
Across the board, minus
So
what I
moved.
just said.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Leon, second by Judge Samaniego.
Commissioner Holguin,
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Commissioner Stout,
Aye. Commissioner Robinson just joined, just FYI.
Struck my man, and then here happens loop, and we get a lot. Obviously,
Can you
We're
get
gonna
his
route,
picture?
we're gonna route him.
everything you asked for.
You can take this vote since it's not going to, and
Judge
I'm
Samaniego?
not sure if he heard, is it okay to,
I'm sorry, Judge?
yeah?
We covered.
I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to connect.
On Apple TV Plus, coming up next, Google on the Raw. Tomorrow on Live.
Commissioner Robinson, may you please turn on your camera?
Yes.
Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries helps you work around that
And we
special
are
piece.
getting some background noise, sir, from your
Super
feed.
sofa sale. For a limited time, save up to $1,000. Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries. Life comfortably.
And we offer the same quality products.
You are muted, Commissioner. We just lost connection.
would you like to continue, Judge?
Yes, please.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Is there a motion on Commissioners Court wages?
Well, let's discuss I think
Okay.
it's an opportunity, and we'll start off with Commissioner Leon since he made the motion to.
You know, I think back in the 10 years that I've been here, and I only voted for the court's increase once because it was bundled together. I had no choice. I made the motion to separate. We did not. So I voted for it. But in this case, I'm not supportive of any raise for Commissioner's Court.
Any comments, Commissioner?
I'm sorry. I, on the other hand, have always been supportive because, you know, I think that we set a policy a number of years ago, and I believe that we should stick to that policy. It's great that other people have other sources of income, maybe retirement, maybe a business, but there are some elected officials that this is their livelihood. You know, things are just as much more expensive for them as they are for the rest of the community, and I mean, I think Betsy laid out many of the other reasons why it's really important for us to do this. You know, I'm one of those people who does not have another job, and I depend on my salary here at the county for my personal expenses, and so. You know, as do many others, and I, you know, I do believe that as we set that policy to make sure that every single employee at the county is paid what the market says they should be paid, I really wish we could stick to that. I think it's a good policy. I think it's good governance. I think that we are going to again overburden a future commissioner's court to have to make a huge jump and make that really tough decision like we had to make. Commissioner Leon, you and I think were the only ones on the court back then when we started this policy, and we made that big initial jump to bring us to the 70%. And I know it was difficult, and a lot of, you know, it was probably the only thing that was covered in the media regarding our budget, even though we do a lot of great things. Unfortunately, that's what they focused on. But talking to my constituents as well, as I've been out on the campaign trail the last couple of times, I've really heard from them that they're supportive of something like this as well. So that's why I have continued to support it. Not everybody is supportive of it, but I think that we can understand the importance of doing something like this to make sure that we are following that policy that we set in place.
Commissioner Holguin, any comments?
I agree with Commissioner Leon. I think when we make the decision to run for public office, we know what that salary amount is, and I don't feel comfortable voting to raise my own salary. If it were possible for us to decide that we were going to raise the salary for a future court, then perhaps that would be different, but I understand that that can't happen because of the way our budget works. So I would actually be in agreement with Commissioner Leon.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes, sir. My sentiments are pretty much the same. When we run for public office, we know how much we are receiving in salary. And in fact, I'll go back to my time on city council. When I first got elected to city council back in 2009, salary was $20,000. So, you know, and in fact, moving forward with the change in the charter where the voters approve a pay raise for the mayor and council, I believe the council members are up to 45,000, and the mayor's like 65,000, somewhere thereabout. A considerable amount more than what we are receiving now. It's not that I don't like to receive more money, but these are hard times, and our constituents are having a hard time. And I think we should set the example that we are leaders in the sense that we lead by example, that we care about our constituents. And we recognize that they are having a hard time, and I don't want to I never try to put myself above my constituents. So I'm not in favor of the increase at this time.
Obviously, go ahead, Commissioner Stott.
No, I was just going to ask, so by that logic, we should not have voted for any increases for any other elected officials because they all also know what they're coming into the office at. And that's why I don't understand that logic, because we just voted to increase all the other elected officials' salaries. They also are elected officials. They knew at what salary they were coming in, but I just don't understand kind of the logic on just the commissioners and not the rest of the elected officials when it comes to that statement or that position.
And I was just making that point about myself. I don't feel comfortable raising my own salary.
Sure.
As far as the other elected officials, that is part of our responsibility, is to consider that, and the wage compression and all of those arguments that Betsy made. Just me personally, I do not feel comfortable voting to raise my own salary. That's what the difference is for me.
Thank you.
And Judge,
yes, go ahead,
Judge,
Commissioner.
My comments are the same as far as was just expressed by Commissioner Hoagie. I'm speaking from a personal perspective. We have choices that we make in life, and we choose to go one direction or choose not to go. I don't feel comfortable with standing for my constituents saying, I gave myself a pay raise. The thing is that we look at our elected officials on a higher level, the congressmen, they give themselves a pay raise. And so here we are with the Commissioners Court. We give ourselves a pay raise. And how many in the public sector, how many elected officials or how many CEOs give themselves a pay raise?
Every commissioner's court in Texas, there's 254 commissioners court in the state of Texas. Every single one has that authority.
Well, they have the authority, but I'm speaking from a personal perspective, that I don't feel comfortable giving myself a pay raise.
Okay, it's obvious I would never vote if it's not unanimous in these kinds of situations, but I think it's, personally, I think we're looking at it a very different way. When you look at it as a business, it's not personal. It's not about you getting, I know it's very awkward, the way the system is, that we have to give ourselves an increase. But if we're willing to give someone an increase so that we can continue the policy to move forward in the right way and not fall behind, who are we not to do the same for the people who are coming in after us? We have one, now it could be two, people that are coming in, to our commissioner's court, and we're making a decision for them as well. And so I feel it's the way we're approaching it is very personalized, because we're not saying it's something for us. We're supporting a policy that was created by HR, and it's not only about us and our term and everything else. It's about how do we keep this situation going in the right direction, that we don't fall behind as we go forward. It's not a personal decision. It's a business decision, whether or not. I know it's awkward. I've never been in a situation like that where I give myself my own increase, but it's a business decision based on a policy within the organization that we're supporting, not only for ourselves, but the people that are following us, individuals that don't have an additional, so if you have an additional, it's a lot easier and say, okay, I don't think we should get an increase, but I can't look at it like that. I have to look at it as a business situation, something that's proposed and recommended by HR, and they're not looking at us, they're looking at the story of us going forward and being competitive in commissioner's court throughout the 254 counties. But like I said, we don't have consensus. This is the kind of thing that you can't vote and split. This is something that I feel has to be unanimous. So if that's the consent of the court, I'll be very supportive. But I do feel like we're passing on a situation to other individuals that might need to get an increase, and we're going to be looking at 15, 20%, and then the public doesn't understand. The public understands, a COLA, that people do get a COLA. We've given it to everybody else, and so it's not like we're doing the opposite. So anyway, I just feel that it's not the right thing to do. I think even a less percentage would be very noble. To say, we'll do 5 instead of 8, that's very noble because we're helping the system and the policy go forward in the most appropriate way. So that's my, like I said, if it's not consensus, then, I wouldn't dare make a vote that doesn't require the entire court. So I don't know if you want to.
I just want to. Go ahead, Commissioner Robinson.
Judge, just one last comment in that regard. As far as you talk about competitiveness, I look at it from the standpoint of those subordinates. I wholeheartedly support those, particularly those who are at the lowest level of the totem pole. Those who are making a minimum wage. Those individuals need a pay raise, and we should make every effort to give them a pay raise. But as far as when you get at the higher level, at the you're talking about the commissioners, the judge. I say it from a personal standpoint, but at the same time, I'm speaking from a business standpoint. Let's support those individuals that need a pay raise. Those people who are day in, day out, are doing the work, make us look good. Those are the ones we should be looking at first before I look at myself.
I think we have. I think we've reached. We've been extremely equitable. We have one of the highest minimum wages in the country, in the county, and so we're doing the best we can. So I just don't want to mix the two things. That we're part of a plan. We're trying to help the plan move forward. It's not just about us. It's about the future and everything we have to do going forward, and supporting not how we feel on a personal level, but how we feel on a policy level. So that's my argument, and then you're free to give it to charity or whatever you want to do, but I think we can't make a decision just based on how we feel about something. Commissioner Stout?
Yeah, I was just going to say, one last comment is, we do need to think about, future representation and making these types of positions accessible for diverse and representative, elected body in the future. We are deciding to raise the salary for a future court if we do that, right? And it shouldn't be that the only people that can have one of these seats is a retiree, is independently wealthy, has a business, has some other type of income. I was very, very lucky because I had the support of some folks to allow me to run, right? But these types of positions are very inaccessible to folks that don't have some type of other income or economic backing, right? And I would like the court to think about that as well. If we want to be able to attract educated, strong, folks to these positions in the future, we have to show that we're able to compensate them with the correct amount of funding. So that's my last spiel. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Leon.
I can appreciate all your opinions, and I thank you for them. I'd like to make a motion that the Commissioners Court, which are the commissioners and the county judge, remain at the same pay scale through this next fiscal year.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Holguin.
Aye.
Commissioner Leon.
Aye.
Commissioner Stout.
No.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Judge Samaniego.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Judge, Commissioners, that concludes our portion of the presentation. I believe Jessica is up next. I'd like to turn it over to her now.
It'll get better, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, lighten it up, Jessica.
All right. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Jessica Garza, Budget and Fiscal Policy Department. So today, we're going to just kind of recap the numbers from yesterday. Just a quick overview from this slide from yesterday, the adopted budget and the preliminary anticipated revenues in the general fund, along with the reconciliation for those funds. Looking at, this is the same slide from yesterday that has the auditor's numbers in the last column and what the budget was projecting, as well as what you received on 6/25. So from yesterday to today, this is an updated slide that has the financial figures that Mr. Dion shared with you all yesterday, with the fund balance decreasing to $91.3 million and revenues to $350.5 million. Our budget projection remains the same, which would give us an end-of-year reserve position at just over 7%. Your budget books, the numbers in your budget books reflect a 6.4% reserve. But after meeting with the auditor yesterday and discussing fund balance as well as some revenue items, we feel that our numbers are very likely to happen by the end of the fiscal year. We will continue to meet with the auditor as well as review some of the line items with the departments to make sure that we capture a good fund balance before your next publication of the book, as well as coming to a consensus with the auditor on revenue amounts. As we reviewed yesterday, the no new revenue tax rate, which was proposed, is a total of 0.426, I'm sorry, I need to say that again. The voter approval rate that was proposed is 0.460808. That was done on Monday. Our certified values, again, increased by $6 billion or 13% over the current 2021 property values. The home values in the county increased at 12%. The proposed voter approval rate would generate an additional $19 million over the no new revenue rate and would allow us to move closer to the goal of the 10 to 15% reserves, which is our policy. As a reminder, the proposed voter approval rate will publish on the 15th. Your tax rate required hearing will be held on August 22nd at 5:30, and the adoption of a tax rate is scheduled for August 29th. Are there any questions?
Let me ask you a question really quick, because we've asked for 4 members of the court to be here in person on August 22nd, which is the day of your public hearing. If at that public hearing you choose the no new revenue rate, you can vote that day on the no new revenue rate. And we do expect 4 of you here that day. If you wait, whether you wait and want to vote no new revenue or anything above it, and you wait until the 29th, then we'll just need to confirm that 4 of you will be here in person on the 29th of August.
And I think you've talked to each one of us on that, and we confirm, right?
I confirmed on the 22nd.
Oh,
I
I
have
see.
not confirmed with all of you on the 29th.
I would be available. Yes, Commissioner Stout? Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'm going to give every effort to be there, yes.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
And I think Wally was on screen. I'm not sure if Wally had
There
something
you
he
are,
wanted to
Wally.
add.
No, I was just online in case any questions came up about the quorum constituting 4 members for a vote on the tax rate. So nothing to add. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Wally. Welcome.
And we're now at the decision-making discussions, the final portion of our budget discussions.
So now, Judge, Commissioners, these items are the ones that I mentioned we still have remaining, and as we work to bring back your final proposed budget for September 12th, we discussed the van pool yesterday. We've talked about it over the last several months. We just need clear direction from the court whether or not you support us funding the full 100% subsidy of the van pool, which is $46,000, an impact of about another $26,000, correct, Jessica?
That's correct.
Into the proposed budget.
Well, we agreed how important it was, and that investment in return to the community is, I mean, 3, 4, 5 times a return, not to us directly, right, but to our community if we can make it happen. The only thing is that, what plans do we have that are different? So I don't know, Commissioner Leon, you wanted to?
No, I feel the same. I think that that'd be good news if we have to pay that out. The bad news is if we keep it because there's no interest generated. So I'm for it. And can I make a motion here, or do I have to wait?
A motion to
You can
include
make
it in the FY23 budget?
Okay, I so move.
Second.
What are we, I'm sorry, what are we including?
Van pool, $26,000 additional, $26,160 additional in budget to 100% subsidize.
Okay.
Up to 20 people for the first year of the van pool. It's 20 people, correct, Sam? For the first year of a van pool.
And if I may just make a comment, Judge, I agree that this would be a wonderful, wonderful investment, but only if we can get people to take advantage of it, and that's been the problem. I think we had this same discussion last year when we said, I think last year it was, 5 years that it had been going on with no participation. Now we're at 6 years with no participation. And I seem to remember that last year we said, okay, let's give it one more year, and we were going to ramp up efforts and talk to all of our employees and try to see if we could get participation, but none of those additional efforts, valiant as they were, seemed to make a difference. So I'm just not sure how many more times we're going to give it a chance when not even one person expressed an interest for all those reasons that we heard yesterday. But I seem to pretty clearly remember last year when we were having this discussion saying, okay, let's give it one more chance and really try to ramp up our efforts. And I think we did that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I think with the way gas prices are going and overall inflation, maybe it's a little different this year, and I agree with you.
So one more year?
One
more year.
I just, there are some benefits. I think the van captain or supreme commander, I don't know what you call the captain, they get an additional 4 hours a week of personal use of that van. Some of those perks may be better explained to our personnel as we move forward, and they may say, hey, that sounds like a good deal on that, especially if we have those Cadillacs that they'll be able to use. But I agree with you, Commissioner Holguin, that we've been pushing it. Like I say, it'd be a great problem to have if we have 40 callers asking about that. But maybe we can try this one more year because of the inflation rate, because of the gas prices and overall economic issues that are facing us right now.
Well, I
And I
hope you
think-
prove me wrong next year.
Yeah, and Betsy, what's the impact of having the program and nobody? I mean, what is the impact of if the money that goes in there that we designate and so forth? Is there any impact on?
It stays in fund balance or general fund until used. The impact, operationally, there's an impact, but it's not significant. It's minimal. And staff coordinating with the company to come out and do county events, to come speak to employees, for our employees to, share the benefit information, but they're sharing other benefit information already. It's minimal.
Okay.
So we have a motion. I'm sorry, Commissioner Robinson.
Commissioner Robinson, please. I'm sorry, I didn't.
In regards to, when we say additional funding for the band program, with all the discussion we've had this year, last year, the year before, in regards to participation, well, I guess the question I would ask is why are we adding the additional money? We have money already programmed for that activity. So why do we add additional? In that we don't have anyone sign up, or we don't have any even no disrespect to Commissioner Leon. I agree with the program, but by the same token, we don't have any takers. So why are we adding more money?
It's an incentive part of SAM?
Yes, sir. Sam Trio, Human Resources Department. The additional funding for this year would be for the 100% subsidy. So we subsidized part of it last time. This would increase it to 100% for 20 people.
So we're looking for ways to incentivize, and this is one way that we think would work.
Yes, sir. We've tried the free parking spot, front area, so it'd make it convenient. So we've tried a lot of different programs to try to entice people into that, met with different groups, and we haven't been successful at this part, and that's why we're saying if we're going to move this forward, then what we're requesting is to change this from a partial subsidy to a full subsidy for 20 people, and then we can try it using those incentives.
Yeah, so we're trying to incentivize better, so.
Yes, sir.
So Commissioner Robinson, it's really more of a bigger incentive this year, a bigger bait for our employees to look at and possibly generate some interest. And like Commissioner Olguin said, we said this last year, but I think this year is a little different because of the situation we're facing. And I promise you all, I won't bring it up anymore if there's no takers.
Well, Commissioner, all due respect, but we said that last year, but we said the year before that 2 years ago, 3 years ago as well. We had the same issue. Well, let me put it in my perspective from this standpoint that I agree with the program, and we do everything we encourage the employees to participate. And so we're saying the incentive would be 100%. I would say that let's give it 6 months. At the 6 months, we have not got anything off the ground for participation. We pull the plug.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense to me. If we start the clock at October 1 and move forward 6 months, I agree with that. Can I include it in my motion, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Then I'll include it in my motion that we do try it at 100% for the first 6 months. Then if we see no interest whatsoever, we cancel it and we put transfer the money back to the general fund.
And my second includes the additional comments.
So then we would only have to add the 50% of that additional amount in the budget?
No, you'd still need to budget the full amount in case you do have the participation.
Yeah.
But we'll report back in April. I've made a note, we'll bring it back in April. We'll give you an update on how successful it's been. And at that point, if it's not been successful, there's no participants, then you would return the funding to general fund contingencies.
Now that's to pay for my cab light.
Okay, Caesar.
Commissioner Olguin?
Okay, Commissioner Leon, 6 more months. Aye.
Quote me.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Judge Samaniego?
Look how much he pushed the marquee, and look at how happy we are. So I've got the belief that it'll happen eventually. So aye.
Motion carries.
We'll even try to get it on the marquee, right, Sam?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's a good idea.
Could you do that motion again? Add
Add it to the marquee.
Thank you, Sam.
Judge and Commissioners, the next item for discussion is the courthouse coffee shop, which would be to increase the budget amount by $150,000. There's $50,000 already in the budget for the coffee shop.
And do you know, Jessica, talk a little bit about the potential revenue? Because I checked out the one at the hospital, and I know it's a lot more people, but they were very surprised at two things. One, that the revenue that was generated was extremely good for them, but also the ambiance, that it had a place where people could, be able to stop, have coffee, people meet with each other. You get to see people coming from other floors, and so you have that kind of interaction. That's where the elections are held, and so, that enhances that. We've talked of ambiance for the, our employees, and having something that accessible, not having to walk out in the summer to go get a coffee somewhere or that kind of thing. So, but the revenue component of that, could you talk a little bit about that so we could sort of let people know it's not just an investment without getting something in return?
Certainly. I'm not familiar with the specific revenue projections on it. I don't believe that we've gotten to that point yet. I do know that the contract that's being worked on is a revenue sharing contract with the vendor when the vendor is selected. And I'm not sure, Betsy, do you have more specific information?
It's my understanding that the contract will include a revenue sharing agreement that includes paying the county back for the infrastructure cost, the built startup cost for the facility.
Yeah.
So that's part of the concept, is that we would pay for what we're constructing with revenue. You may recall we used to actually, especially as we return to more normal operations, if you will, as we get back to having, so it wouldn't just have coffee, there'd be like sandwiches or small things that people could take to eat. And when we, pre-pandemic, when the coffee shop closed, the little coffee shop that we had that just had a little bit of like pastries and coffee, we got so many complaints from jurors that there was no food available. So then we went to trying to provide convenience by vending machines, but then they needed a microwave to warm up some of the things they got, or we only had cold things in the vending machine. So there was a demand pre-pandemic when we had a coffee shop here. And it did seem to always have a steady, flow, not quite like UMC's, but it did always seem to have a steady flow of people coming to the little coffee shop. So we don't have revenue projections exactly yet. And I do think it'll depend a lot on who we get in there to operate the facility, the operation.
No, and my point was just in general sense that there is revenue that comes back, and that we don't see that as $150,000 and without an opportunity to get that money back. That was my point, not necessarily the projections or anything.
Okay. Thank you.
May I ask some questions, Judge?
Yes.
So the rendering that we received today, this looks like a pretty large space. So I don't think we're talking about the same little stand that we had pre-pandemic. So where would this be proposed to go?
Same location, but it would take up a larger, so the end of the bank where the elevators, as you walk out and you're walking towards the front of the courthouse, the elevator bank that's on the right-hand side and the bathrooms, the lobby just north of that area, similar to where the other one was located.
And including, because here it shows like a seating area and all kinds of shelving. Is this an accurate depiction of what we think it will
I do
look
believe
like?
it's a pretty accurate rendering. From the space that's been toured, our engineers have looked at it. I believe, Nicole, correct me, who provided the rendering? Yes, our own facilities provided the rendering.
I really
Public Works.
did like the little stand that we had prior to the pandemic. As a coffee lover, I really appreciated having that stand, and it's been difficult not having any coffee in the courthouse. And I understand how that greatly affects the jurors as well. So I do want to reopen the coffee stand. I'm just not sure if the county should be investing $150,000 to try to do something that looks more kind of like a Starbucks. I mean, it almost seems like we should maybe perhaps be making some of those investments in the cafeteria downstairs to make that a little bit nicer if that's what we want to do. Up here on the third floor, to me, it makes perfect sense because of the space limitations to have more of a smaller coffee stand the way that we did before. And so I don't know, and I understand that the idea is that the revenues will help pay for these costs, but I mean, we have no idea what those revenues are at this point or how long that would even take. So I don't know, I feel like I'm not sure why we're deviating from what we had previously that we know worked well.
Commissioner Leon?
I think you hit it on the nail on the head, Betsy, when you said jurors. I was part of a jury a couple of years ago, and they kept me hanging on for a while. And some of the orders that I hear from the court is, you will remain on this floor, which is the third floor. And not so much only for our jurors and attorneys, but our own employees to have a place to come. If they bring their lunch, they can eat there. So I think it's changing times. I see that a lot of banks are incorporating a small coffee shop into their business. So I think that $150,000 is a pretty small investment in our own employees and our own constituents that come to visit our court. They don't want to be here. Most of the jurors, they don't want to be here, but I think offering something like that, where you don't have to just be standing there for hours waiting on some decisions. So I think I'm very supportive of this. I think if it starts going south, we can always make an about face and go back to the small stand. But I'll make the motion to, can you get that, the actual monies?
150,000?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to
increase the budget by 150,000 for the coffee shop.
yes. Yeah, there it is, 150,000, yeah.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Holguín?
No.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Reluctantly, no.
That was a no by Commissioner Robinson. Judge Samaniego?
I just wanted to make a comment on, we have the Alicia, Chacon, and the Enrique Moreno exhibitions here that people, we would love for them to see. And I think more and more people would use this third floor. But one of the things that's really important is the quality of our courthouse. That I think we have to be at the level of any organization that shows the quality. There was a point where you knew where a county building was, and it was not the best thing that you would think about. So I like the idea of this, providing the quality and then doing everything to get the revenue going so that it covers it. And then I think it'd be an amazing thing that if we look back and say we're able to have this level of quality and we ended up getting it paid back through the revenue. So I'm very supportive of this. So aye.
Motion carries.
Judge and Commissioners, next on our list is the $76,000 for rental space for the District Attorney's Office.
Again, this money would be placed in contingencies. I'm not even exact, this is the amount of the actual lease of the space. You're not acting on it, you're not approving it today, other than just setting the money aside. Public Works is meeting with the DA's office. I've toured the space. They've taken the DA, I believe, to tour the space. We're continuing to work with the potential landlord on this option. We would bring it back to the court for a full presentation and actual decision, but we want to have the funding available should you decide to do it.
And I really appreciate this because it's been a little difficult, the kinds of questions I've been asked as to whether or not we don't have the full staff because we don't have the space. And it's been a difficult type of discussion with the public and with reporters saying, you know, we haven't been able to hire and do our job because we don't have the space. And so as long as someone believes that they don't have the space, then I think we have to address it. Whether or not we all agree or not. But, you know, the person in charge says she requires the space, and so I think we should do everything possible to be able to accommodate that situation. And I like what you're saying, Betsy, that it's not a decision right now, it's a decision to put aside, and then we could always address in detail. But I think we need to show that we're moving in the right direction to provide the proper space from the request of the DA.
And that's a good price. I understand that also includes security, which would take a big chunk of any other type of lease. So I'll make the motion to, now Betsy, are you going to set it aside, or do we need a motion to set it aside at all?
A motion to place in contingencies in the final budget.
I'll move.
Second.
Commissioner Holguín?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The other items that aren't listed on the slide that we'd like your approval to include is the recommended wage adjustments for employees, the new positions in the final budget, and then, actually, those two items first. The wage adjustments as recommended for employees.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Holguín?
And these are all figures that are already included in the proposal
ma'am.
that we reviewed. Okay. Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then the new positions and the position changes that were presented and recommended by HR.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Holguín?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then, based on this, I just want to be clear that we will bring back, we'll continue to work with the auditor. Our team is working diligently on the revenue projections and on shoring up what fund balance will be. We will bring back a budget in September that does have a slightly lower fund balance for lower than the 8%, with the expectation in our projections that we'll end up somewhere right below or right at the 8% amount by the end of the year when they close FY 2022. And then, Frank, do you want to share the register with the court also? We do have a register. In the years past, we used this register a lot throughout the hearings, but that's because we didn't have direction on many, many items. There's a lot of technical issues with showing the register now that we do budget hearings this way. So if you'll give us just a couple minutes, we'll get the register up so you can see the impacts of where we're at today.
Betsy, and Judge, I mean, is there an opportunity to talk about additional items that we may want to discuss?
Yes, and that's why we'd like you to see the register.
Yeah, this
Okay.
would be the place, Commissioner.
So I think you can see it on your screen now. So with the items that have been added today, the van pool, the elected officials' wages you brought down, the coffee shop, the rent for the DA space, we're right now looking at about a 5.45 or no, 5.9% reserve. Last year, when you adopted, we were at a 5.45% reserve.
And that is subject to change, right?
It is subject to change based on our continual work with the auditors.
And we're optimistic that it's,
We're
changes
optimistic it
upwards.
will come up.
To 7.78, right? That's what we
The
thought.
I think our latest estimate is 7.17
Okay,
or 7.15, something like that.
okay.
So anything we remove or add, we'll add to this sheet, and it'll give you an idea of what the impact is. So if there's other items the court would like to discuss, this would be the ideal time.
Yeah, so, Judge, if I may, there are a couple of items that I did want to discuss. I think, at what level are we funding Project Arriba? At 75?
75.
Yes, sir, they're at 75,000. Now, they may have applied for our NOFO. I'm not sure if they have or not, but they may be an applicant in our NOFO as well.
Okay. I still think that, just taking into account everything that happened with the pandemic, the shortage of nurses that our hospitals saw, the huge amount of money that, for example, UMC had to spend on contract labor. At one point, they were spending $5 million a month on contract labor. I feel like, we could bump up the amount of funding that we're providing to Project Arriba. I mean, I'd like to double it to 150 if we can, at least. Because I feel like this is a very strong investment, one of the best investments that we've made when it comes to return on investment. And, I think the pandemic really underscored the need for us to support organizations like this that do this workforce development, take people out of poverty, get them into our hospitals. They're people that are going to stay here, they're from here, and, the economic impact is great. It helps our hospitals with that shortage, and in the long run, I mean, if we would have spent a lot more money in the past, I think we probably would have saved quite a bit with our hospital and the amount that they spent on contract labor. We always have a shortage of healthcare professionals here in El Paso, and this is one organization that really has proven to be successful and worth every single penny that we put in. So, I understand that they may be applying for a NOFO, but I feel like this is something that we should be funding more heavily every year, as it is. So, I don't know if other members of the court are willing to go that route, but I do feel like another $75,000 at least for Project Arriba would be in order.
I think there's two items that we have. It's almost like broadband, where everybody decides that, whether everyone needs to decide that it's very important. I think it's childcare and getting our healthcare workers into the pipeline, getting them into it. I mean, and then the fact that and the Commissioner Stout made this comment about the candidates are those that are really in a really difficult situation. So you take someone, I got to meet, I believe Veronica she's one of the head nurses at UMC, who went from not having any wages to making the kind of money she does and being in that situation. So it addresses from different dimensions. It's not only getting, if we just put money up at, for UTEP or someone like that to increase health care, is one thing, but the other is also getting individuals from a difficult crisis into a better situation. But I don't know where we could actually invest better than with health care. I think health care right now, they're struggling. When you don't have someone at a restaurant and you need 20 people at hotels, they tell me certain hotels need 20, 30. Somehow you could figure that one out, but not in healthcare. That impacts the quality of care. The number of hours to tell someone to go to 12 hours in a healthcare environment is really difficult for them. So I think they've proven beyond anything that I've seen that they're very capable. So I'm very supportive of that increase. Commissioner Leon?
Yeah, Judge, thank you. So, as am I. I think it's a great program. And maybe when you make your motion, if we can double Crime Stoppers from 5,000 to 10,000, both for crime. It's a tool that fights crime, obviously, but also it's an economic helper for both the city, the county, and other municipalities and schools. So if you don't mind adding that, it's an additional $5,000, but it goes a long ways.
Yeah, I was going to say, the return is just amazing on
It
both
is, it
programs. So I don't know how the rest of the court feels, but I think those are two extremely valuable. They've made us look very good, as you know, to invest in them, and the return they bring back is just amazing. So I would agree on that as well. Commissioner Olguin?
I guess my only comment was, I mean, we know that, and I don't know about Crime Stoppers, but I'm pretty sure that Project Arriba did apply for the NOFO. So and we haven't made that decision yet about which agencies are going to be funded, but that was the whole point of the NOFO, was to provide agencies, nonprofit organizations, an opportunity to have access to additional funding. So that would be the only reason, not because I don't think the two organizations are very worthwhile or that it's worth it, but I feel that was the whole point of going through the process of the NOFO. So I would rather wait until we have those results.
Nicole, you were going to check on that? Had they applied for, you recall?
Yes, I checked with Public Works with Christian Martinez, and so Project Arriba did apply. Crime Stoppers did not, from what I understood. And I don't think we'll know who the funding is going to be awarded to till November or December from.
And Betsy, can I ask you a question on the difference of, like, I feel like what we're providing is very specific for the program to be successful, where the other one has to do some catching up or things that they needed because of the, pandemic and all this. Am I clear on that, or is the money could be used, the federal funding can be used for the same thing?
So the federal funding, I think Project Arriba would easily qualify for ARPA funding.
Mm-hmm.
If that's, I'm not sure if I understand what you're asking. I think Project Arriba would qualify. Some of their programs. We'd need to run it through the procedure, but I do think they would qualify for ARPA. I think we looked at it for Crime Stoppers, and what they submitted did not qualify.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could consider giving Project Arriba separate from the NOFO, which then what we would do is we would go back and advise as part of the NOFO that that they're getting this other funding, and it's a more guaranteed, because you may recall, we have more applicants than we have funding through the NOFO. We have a lot more applicants than we have funding.
No guarantee that.
There's no guarantee that Arriba will get it through the NOFO.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you give it to them here and now, you could either use ARPA. We have about $3 million unallocated. You could use general fund. Frank's added those to the sheet so you could see the impact of that. And you could also say, if we give it to them here and they do rise to the top level of the NOFO, that we want this to be factored in to the amount that they're given. So say they got 200,000, you could reduce it if you wanted, but you don't have to.
I don't agree, because I think that we're almost saying like if 75 was enough. You know what I'm saying? It's very little. When you look at the challenges of healthcare workers and what we're going through, we're just sort of putting a little bit into the, so I wouldn't want to put that and then deduct it because I just don't see that. I really believe that there's not one more important thing that we could do than to get that pipeline of healthcare workers. There's so many that left that went to other careers and that are even waiting right now, and others that are looking for an opportunity to go to Midland or somewhere else because they're going to want to make more money. And so when you bring them into a pipeline, they're not ready to be leaving. It takes some time to get experience. It takes some time. So they're more of a stable support for the hospital. So
I agree, Judge, and also, taking into account the fact that the Commissioners Court is poised to possibly pass the expansion for UMC, they're going to need to have more of a pipeline with, if there's an expansion and they're going to have to expand their personnel, right? And so we'd, I think, be helping to support in that manner as well, if that ends up passing and going forward, right? So I think $150,000 in this budget is, in my opinion, really not enough. I feel like we should be doing a lot more, but I think this is the bare minimum we could do, and hopefully they, we'll see what happens with the NOFO. But I think we should really, start laying more of a foundation for the future. I mean, like I said, the pandemic's really underscored the need for something like this and the benefit. And, we were on the right track when we were funding this, at a higher level before. And I wish we would have been funding it at an even higher level because, again, we would have probably saved our county hospital a lot of money, millions of dollars, right? So I'll go ahead and make the motion to include these two asks.
May I ask one more question?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't remember this through our discussions with Project Arriba, but is there, if nurses do graduate from the program and do become employed with UMC, is there a minimum amount of time that they have to be employed for?
I believe that's what they said, right, Betsy? That they'd have a...
I don't know if I don't know if there's a requirement that they work at UMC. I mean, they may go to other providers or other hospitals, not necessarily UMC, but...
Because if we're doing this to help our county hospital, then I feel like there should be some kind of promise to be at UMC for a particular amount of time. I mean, that's something that's very common, like, for example, nonprofit attorneys that do receive some kind of assistance with their paying off their student loans, things like that. You promise
They
to
do
stay at
have
the
it.
organization.
Let me
I'm
pull
sorry
up
to
their-
interrupt. They do have a program that helps with their tuition and also some sort of bonus. I can't, I remember Jacob talking exactly what you're asking about.
But that's a UMC program. I'm talking about as part of the Arriba contract, if one of our requirements can be that a certain percentage of the graduates are set aside, do get referred to UMC and get hired, and that they do agree to stay there for an amount of time.
Yeah, for some reason, I remember that there was a percentage that goes to UMC with that caveat, but I don't know if we could, I mean, I don't know, this is...
UMC also has a program where they help fund Arriba.
Yes, I think they give them $200,000.
And I think theirs might have a flow into UMC. Ours does not,
Does
that I
not have
recall.
any.
But ours does have a lot of, so our agreement with Arriba has a lot of requirements in it of what they must do with us. I can pull it if you can give me just a few minutes of what Arriba is contracted to do with us. But then what they require with their students, it's not necessarily included in the
It's
contract.
separate from us.
Well, I feel if we're providing that funding and we're doing it specifically with the goal of making sure that our county hospital has more access to healthcare workers, then I think that has to be part of the agreement.
Yeah, the only thing is with that is that I feel like we would have to talk to UMC, to work with them to make sure that they are actually offering jobs to people that are coming out of Project Arriba, right? Because we don't have that requirement of them at this point.
Which we know they're always facing a shortage, so I mean, I can't imagine that would be, I don't think UMC would be the problem, right? There's always a shortage at UMC, so I don't think they would not agree to it. But I mean, I do feel that if the rationale, the court's rationale in approving additional funding is to help our county hospital, then there has to be some kind of assurance that these nurses are going to actually go to our county hospital for a specific amount of time.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely use those talking points to make a point, but I believe that there's a healthcare shortage all across the county, right? And all of the hospitals, and I mean, I do agree that, you know, we should push these folks to into the pipeline at UMC. I think prioritize UMC over the private hospitals or other providers, but also I think we need to take into account where these people live and if, you know, I don't know. I think there's a lot of other factors involved. I mean, I think we have this set up to where only folks in the out county can tap into this funding that's coming from the county as well. And so, you know.
But that's the great thing about UMC, right? We have clinics everywhere. We have a clinic in Fabens, on the far west, the George
Sure.
Dieter. So there's, I think, plenty of opportunity, no matter where anyone lives, for employment with UMC.
Well, I'd like the, the fact that what you're saying, Commissioner, is that I do get the other hospitals saying, we exist, we're here as well, we're part of the, of the needs of the, so I feel like this is an opportunity to, let the invisible hand works its magic, and that, have UMC, have the quality and the things that are needed for them to attract the right people. But I also think that everybody should have an opportunity. And like you said, Commissioner, that need is in every hospital right now and throughout the whole county. And I think the free enterprise, to me, I love that. If you're attracted, if they have the right quality programs, if they have the right things for them, they're going to attract the right personnel. But I wouldn't try to figure out how they get a better shot because of a contractual agreement versus their ability to appeal to the healthcare worker wanting to work at UMC. So,
With all due respect, Judge, I mean, our responsibility is to UMC, not the private hospitals. And sometimes UMC can't compete with the private hospitals. And that's why we would be giving these additional resources to try to help with that.
Yeah, I hear that.
There's
Commissioner,
Judge,
yes, Commissioner Robinson?
I feel there should be a return on the investment that we make with Project Ariba as far as our county hospital. Yes, there are a shortage of doctors and nurses throughout, but when you say the private sector, they have their methods of bringing in personnel, doctors and nurses through their resources. We're making an investment, and there should be a pipeline or some method of return on investment that we make that we get, I won't say necessarily 100%, but a lion's share of those individuals that come from Project Reba to UMC.
No, and I agree. I'm just saying that I just find it difficult that we're going to find some kind of a contractual agreement that leads in that direction. I just can't see that. But Commissioner Leon?
Judge, Commissioner Olguin, would it, I think, I agree with what you're saying. Maybe in the motion and our further negotiations with Project Rio that we can include in there and look for some mechanism that we encourage them to funnel some of these graduates towards our county hospital.
Or just prioritize UMC, and if they don't have the positions open or if they can't take them on or whatever, then I don't know.
And I think that would serve our purpose, at least to try to get, and I think Project Arriba works very well with us, and I think they'd be very open to that they at least try a little harder in funneling some of these graduates towards UMC.
Do you remember the percentage on their presentation? I don't know if you have it available, but I think there was a large number that end up in UMC, but I don't know.
No, Judge, I don't think so. The numbers that I asked UMC for last year indicated that they'd received very few during the years. That's the information that Jacob gave me last year. That's why I've always had that concern. And unfortunately, I think just encouraging them to send their graduates to UMC isn't enough. I wouldn't be in favor unless we can come to some kind of contractual agreement.
Yeah, but we would have to obligate UMC to also be willing to do that, because it may not just be that Project Arriba is, not prioritizing UMC. It may be that UMC is finding nurses.
But then I think
in other
that's
places.
indicative of another problem. If UMC doesn't want the Project Arriba graduates, then I think that indicates there's a different problem with the program. I mean, if UMC has a shortage of healthcare workers, I don't see why they wouldn't want a guaranteed pipeline of workers.
No, and the fact that they're giving 200,000, themselves. I'm sure that they're doing that so that they could get, you know, a return on their money by having them come to them. But, so I don't know.
Good morning, Judge Commissioners.
Yes.
Eric Rosales-Nagab, Assistant County Attorney. I'm trying to help the court put together a motion. I'd recommend two separate motions for Project Arriva and then Crime Stoppers. So first with Project Arriva, Commissioner Stout, will you remind me the amount that your recommendation for
An additional 75,000, so 150 total?
150,000. So I have to approve the inclusion of $150,000 in the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget for Project Arriva, prioritizing in the contract the encouragement of graduates to go to UMC.
Okay, that's a really
that be
good way.
okay?
Thank you,
That
Erica.
motion.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Holguín?
I think we have to do much more than simply encourage, so no.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'm going to go no in regards to, I think we need more than just a promise. We need a firm commitment.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And maybe we can, you know, talk to UMC and talk to Project Arriba and see if we can work something out. And
Yeah, they've been very open, and I think that that's the kind of partnership that works, I feel better talking to them and getting some agreements and trying to push a contractual agreement. But I think they've been extremely open to our support, so.
And I'll
I hope-
remind the court that any contract amendment has to come before the court again, so you will have an opportunity to review that language and give us any feedback at that time.
Excellent. Thank you, Erica.
thank you.
Commissioner Leon, I don't know, I would have the same, if you wanted to talk about Crime Stoppers, the approval of the inclusion of, I know you were mentioning an amount, but I didn't catch it, I apologize.
Yes, the total amount is $10,000, an additional $5,000 as opposed to last year, so a total of $10,000.
So a total of 10,000?
Yes.
So approve the inclusion of $10,000 in the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget for Crime Stoppers.
Okay,
Is
wait,
that not-
just a second, because you're saying it different than what we did for Arriba. So
Okay.
Arriba's a total of 150?
Yes. That's
What you
right,
have?
that's right.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
And the total for Crime Stoppers is 10,000?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
sorry.
So it would be to approve the inclusion of a total of $10,000 in the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget for Crime Stoppers.
Yes, thank you. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Holguín?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, and then Judge, there was one more issue that I wanted to bring up. Again, I think it's a program that we started on, you know, and really on the right track, and that the pandemic also underscored the necessity and the good work that had been done. And I'm talking about the Healthy Food Financing Initiative. As we all know, the vast majority of people who succumbed to COVID-19 was because they had chronic illnesses or underlying conditions. Many of those, hypertension, high blood pressure, obesity, heart disease, all things that are directly related to what one consumes, right? And so I think that the HFFI program has been very successful in supporting creating more opportunities for people to have access to healthy food within the county, all across the county. And I wanted to see if we would be willing to allocate maybe a couple $100,000 additional to that program in this budget.
Betsy,
Judge?
could you give us a synopsis of what's been happening and just so we can vote a little bit better?
Yes, we're pulling it up, but we actually did increase HFFI in the budget based on the discussion we've had with the court about using UT Health to help administer and be the, I forget the correct title, but it's the coordinating office
Right.
for that program. So I do believe, they're double checking me, but I believe we budgeted it at 600,000. That cost, we're trying to get that cost to be 10%. We're working back and forth. Right now, we're in negotiations with UT Health. on that agreement.
I think, yeah, I think that piece is important, but I also wanted to advocate for more grants, you know, a little more to give out a little more
Well,
in the grant
this would
funding.
increase both for grants, slightly for grants. It's about a 20% increase to the budget for HFFI is what we have in. And we're expecting about 50 to 60,000 of that to be for the coordinating office, and then the additional amount would go towards your grants.
And what is that amount, Betsy?
600,000 total.
Total, as opposed to
It
the
was
500.
500,000, yes, ma'am. But if the court wants to increase it, of course, we can add that to the,
Well, yeah, that's why I brought that up. I wanted
oh,
to,
okay, we have it in 550? Okay, I'm sorry, we have it in at 550,000.
okay. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because I feel like we could do a little more in the way of providing those grants. I think it's been very successful. And I wanted to see if the court would be willing to add an additional $200,000 to that.
Commissioner Leon?
Commissioner Stout, I'm very supportive of healthy food that's available to the public, but this group has failed time after time, year after year, to supply me with specific stats to indicate who they are serving, what amounts are going to them. Are they actually taking advantage of these areas? I'm very supportive of roadside vendors that we've had. I think on Socorro Drive, there's like a market. But any additional amount I'd be very opposed to, because like I said, I've asked them over and over to supply me with acceptable statistics of who they're serving, what they're serving, and when they're serving, and they've not done that in the many years that we've been dealing with them. But like I say, I'm very supportive of the roadside markets, but any others, it seems like somebody in my office went to purchase some of their offerings, and it was expensive. It was a small amount, and until they can prove that they're actually serving people that cannot get to healthy food, I'm very opposed to it.
I'm not.
Judge,
Yes, Commissioner Robinson, go ahead.
I'll go back to my time in the military when I was in Vietnam. Commander presented to me, he said, Sergeant, the only thing I'm interested in is results. And the results that I see are not enough to convince me that to give additional funding for this program. So my comments and my vote would be no.
Well, maybe we need to have our economic development department and whomever else is working on this work to provide additional information, because I feel the exact opposite. I feel like the program has been very successful. You know, I don't know if Commissioner Leon, you're talking about Desert Food Spoon Hub, the Desert Spoon Food Hub, but you know they were able to. I mean, we were able to help them construct a distribution center, and also to open up a storefront within Precinct 2 on Yandel. That is doing exactly what the purpose for this funding was, which is increasing access for folks. This is, you know, I don't want us to get it confused with like the food bank, which is there to provide free food to people that are in need on an emergency basis. That's not what Desert Food Spoon Hub or Desert Spoon. I keep messing up the name. Desert Spoon Food Hub. That's you know, their purpose is to provide more access to folks in neighborhoods that are underserved, and that's exactly what their project is doing. Same thing with the operation out on the Mission Trail. Is it Loya, Bodega Loya?
Bodega Loya, yes.
You know, we helped them to construct a refrigeration unit, I think, and allow the farmers to get their produce to sell at that farmers market. The same thing with the distribution center that Desert Spoon has put together. It's allowing local producers to store their items and have a longer shelf life, basically, and give them more time to distribute their produce to the folks that are sourcing it locally. I believe we also incentivized the Brown Street Market. Is that right, Betsy? I think that was another project that we also incentivized, and that was basically a tattoo shop that was going to be a tattoo shop that has continued to provide healthy options in a very low income and very underserved area. So I feel I feel like they've served the purpose, and they've been very successful in serving the purpose for the grants that we gave them.
And I agree with you. I just want, show me some results. And they've either refused to do it or just cannot do it. Some of those models are just, goes without saying, like the one in Socorro. But some of the other ones, I've asked them year after year. Like I say, and I don't want to repeat myself, but
I hear you.
if they do come across, I'm all for it, but at the time being, no.
Well, I think we need to do a better job of then, as staff, and working with the folks at University of Houston now to make sure that we provide the members of the court the data that they would like to see. I'm not sure. Yeah.
And Commissioner Holguin, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. So I'm also very supportive of the program. I think Bodega Loya is a wonderful example of the change that this type of funding can bring to a community. But I guess my point would be that maybe perhaps in light of some of the concerns that some of the commissioners have, then maybe the smaller incremental increase that staff is recommending is the best course of action now. But what I would like to suggest, though, is maybe I've gone to all of the recipients in my area, but honestly, I haven't seen any of the recipients in any of the other precincts. Perhaps it would be a good idea for our economic development team to organize some kind of trip that we could all take to just so that we could see the fruits of these labors, so that we can really have an understanding. That seems like something that should have happened. And I don't know if that's possible when people are applying for the funding, if it's possible to do that. But perhaps the incremental increase that staff is proposing would be good for this year while we try to get some of those answers that Commissioner Leon is concerned with, and Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you focused on the economic component of it, because I think it loses sometimes. For example, Bodega Loya or Loya Bodega, I don't know which one.
Bodega Loya.
But, and then you find out sort of indirectly, I found out that they're serving now Paso del Norte, so that makes them stronger for them to be in their community. But I think they're providing almost $500 of produce to them, and produce that, that they could probably not move or whatever. But so that economic component is so important as we look at all the other impacts that it has on individuals or not having the right food and so forth. So I think it's a really good combination. But Commissioner Robinson, did you?
Bottom line is, where are the results? For how many people that we're talking about for healthy food were impacted by the funding that we provide to those entities? So say, do we have anything available to say, yes, we did the program, which we know that the program exists, but where are the results? I say, bottom line is results, and I don't see them.
Betsy, on this particular item, would it impact us in any way if it went in further or looked at it when we have more information as to the success of the program? I think we're going to find that it does, but they're right that we're not looking at it.
Yes, sir. So a couple things. You could set the additional funding aside, not put it into the HFFI budget, set it into contingencies. That would allow you the opportunity, and then if it's not used, it goes back to fund balance. You also, but if it is used, then it's there and available to budget. I also have asked Dr. Madrigal to work with UT Health to find out what kind of data and statistics we need to gather and present to the court, and have made a note to work on the tour of the HFFI grant award-winning locations to give an idea of what we've done with this in the past. But if you wanted to set it aside in contingencies while we gather that information, get a tour organized, and bring it back, it would allow it to be budgeted, but not yet allocated. And Frank has added it to the spreadsheet so you can see where we're at.
I mean, I would like to do that if I'll make that motion to go ahead and set aside $200,000 in contingencies for HFFI that could possibly be utilized in the future once we get the information to the members of the court who are requesting that information.
I'll second
And a
that.
later vote will take place if
To allocate it,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Olguin.
Aye.
Commissioner Leon.
Aye.
Commissioner Stout.
Aye, and thank you.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Judge Samaniego.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, Judge Commissioners, I do want to clarify earlier when I asked about the motion to direct us for the final budget on employee salaries and on new positions as presented. I want to clarify what was, when I said as presented, what was presented is the new positions go into effect in January. That's what we have in budget. And then the wages go into effect the first full pay period of the fiscal year. That's what we have in the projected budget.
Yeah, that's what that's what I thought.
I
we
just wanted,
agreed on.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify for the record. Thank
Yeah,
you.
because
Can
you
I
did
clarify?
say push it to January.
For the new positions, it's pushed to January.
And can I clarify one more thing with regards to new positions? I know you and I had been speaking about the volunteer coordinator, bringing that position back. I just want to confirm with you, that is one of the new positions that's included.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Do you have any other action items before we go to the UMC?
Yeah, can I make a pitch?
Yes, sir, of course.
You know, we're right at that point of, it's been like 3 years working on the Veterans Capital of the U.S., and I think that, you know, we're trying to promote as much as we can as well. What's the impact? The impact obviously is one that our veterans would feel extremely grateful that we would get recognized, because we'd get recognized because of what they do and all the success that they've had. We also know that tourism would expand. The loyalty of the veterans is just amazing. So you would have individuals coming through the freeway wanting to stop and see the Veterans Capital of the U.S. We've done a lot of work on it. What we've done, and just so that the public knows, is that it's not something that is given to you. It's something that you entitle yourself, and then you have to defend it. And so we've done inventories on the, you know, who are the veterans that are here, all the monuments, just everything that happens with veterans that we do here, the survey and how we address the survey, what we're doing when we all come together. So it's a lot of work that's been done. We have other things like the Gold Star family. There's going to be a monument. So it's almost incredible the amount of monuments, you know, flags over the, what's the official name? Flags over the U.S. or that we have on Railroad Drive, which is amazing. They've expanded it. We've had the Koreans come from all the way from Korea to honor our veterans. The disproportionate amount of veterans that died in El Paso in different wars is just unbelievable. So we have, you know, I've talked to Destination El Paso. Talked to the chambers, I've talked to, I mean, everyone concerned, and so we're wanting to be able to announce that right prior to November the 11th, which is Veterans Day. So I'm very excited about the fact that if we do this, we don't have any moniker here in El Paso. I mean, we're the Sun City, but it doesn't tell the story. But the way what we've done to veterans and the energy, We're now, when we came out the seventh best place for veterans in the United States, it's actually, we're number one in Texas. And so we've looked at the other 6 to see what is it that, that they've done, and there's no comparison other than that they got selected by other criteria. So I'm very, I do need to support that on the signage, that we look at signage, and we have talked to DOT, and, you know, it's a little difficult because it's not like an official, so we have to sort of grant that, but they would be willing to help. I know we've had the billboard that has said, you know, Veterans Capital of the U.S., here we come, and we moved that to Veterans Capital of the U.S., so we've slowly moved in. A tremendous amount of work has been done in a very subtle way, but I don't know if there's any veterans organization that we haven't touched on to let them know what we're trying to accomplish. So we do have, and I don't know how much money we have, Betsy, in it. Do you have that figure, the money that we've requested?
I don't know if this is a special request, but what we had from Carl Dwyer was Carl requested that we take the funding that the court had set aside previously and reallocate a portion of it because the demand for the parades was less.
Mm-hmm.
We did meet with the city, and they said they're planning to continue to fund that parade.
Mm-hmm.
If you give me 1 second, I have the amount.
And as she's looking at that, I can tell you the return on that would be amazing to get that kind of recognition. It just, like I said, there's been a lot of work on that survey. I was a little disappointed. We had 1,600 apply, then we found out that was Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston together had like 1,500 applied for the survey or completed the survey. And so, you know, a lot of great things happening around the veterans, and I think this one would really pull us all in. I mean, it would really pull everything together. We have the Veterans of the Year, which has been very successful. All the organizations submit applications for that. Our committee is comprised of, you know, individuals outside, but we also have Carl and others, business individuals like Ben Williams, who's also on the advisory board. But so anyway, I think it'd be a great initiative. I'm not thinking it takes a lot of money, but I think the signage would be important to quickly have the signage up. As you know, San Antonio calls themselves a gateway to Mexico, and they have signs and everything, and that's their moniker, which is pretty strange that would be. And nobody gave it to them. They're 125 miles away from the border. You know, Hatch is a perfect example of being, you know, the chili capital of the world, and all they have to do is they were able to substantiate that simply because they have such great chili. So it's a similar thing with us. It's not an application. It's not something you apply. It's something that you just entitle yourself and then you defend it. And I think the committee feels extremely, you know, confident that we could defend that title. So.
Do you know how much we're requesting for that, Judge? Because Carl did set aside some separate funding, but I don't think it was specifically for the signage.
Well, what I would like to see is sort of same thing, contingency, that it's not something that we don't agree on until we can come back and say, hey, this is what we'd like to do, this is what the signage requires, and you know, from talking to individuals, it would be like an initial like $50,000 just to make sure that we have the, and we're at a disadvantage because we went to different consultants that would charge us, you know, $250,000 to make it and go out there into marketing, and we've done that pretty much ourselves. We haven't asked any firm to do that, which is very typical that a firm would do that. But I think through the veterans organizations and that we haven't had to do that and spend money on marketing. I talked to the chamber yesterday, one of the members of the chamber, of course, you know, Andrea is very supportive of military and veterans, and they're willing to sort of come in. But since I don't know how much each organization that I've talked to would be willing to support us, That's why I would like at least some money there, and then if it doesn't apply or doesn't fall in place, we lose nothing.
Okay, so that.
Judge,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Robinson?
I agree with you. I think what we need to do in that regard is maybe we can delay this action that we're talking about right now until we can get to some more data from which we do have available.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to get the information from Carl in that regard. You look at El Paso as far as veterans are concerned. Our population has grown immensely. You go back for about years ago, Fort Bliss, the population was about 10,000 soldiers. As we move forward today, Fort Bliss, we have about 40,000 soldiers. Now, does not count family members. We talking about just how many soldiers we have that at Fort Bliss. So about 40,000. Then when you add the family members, you're talking about 100,000 people. That's a lot of people that live in El Paso, potentially will move to El Paso in one form or another. They buy houses. In fact, in the far east portion of El Paso, you look at the number of people who are buying houses, considerably are veterans. So the impact that our veteran community has to this community is very significant, where we need to make sure we make some more effort to say that we propose to be the veterans capital of the nation. As I say, show me. That's what our veterans are saying. Show me about what you're going to do, not talk about it. Because before, years ago, up to now, Judge, there was very little to none efforts were done to promote veterans in this community.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We have made great strides in the past 2 years with your support, but we need to move forward and do more. And we can't just keep providing lip service. If you know anything about veterans, don't talk about it, be about it.
Mm-hmm. And I have talked to each one of the generals that have been here during my term, and they're very supportive because it enhances them as well to get people to come to El Paso, to recruit, that, it's sort of like a reflection on them as well. One of the things before, and Commissioner Robinson is exactly right, until the program of Soldier for Life, the veterans in the service felt that once they got out of the service, they were done, and they had no connection and nobody cared about them. And so the military now is doing a huge effort. They have really difficult recruiting, and so they feel that in itself would also lend itself. You honor the veterans, you're honoring the military at the same time. So they're very supportive of helping us with this. So, like I said, it's just on a contingency. If it does happen, we have it. We might not need it. There's already people wanting to donate on making this happen. That we get not take as much public money on this, but there's veterans that are very interested in donating towards this. The chambers are looking at it. Destination El Paso. But I really don't have my hands around their support at this time. But I do want to put something on the table if it looks like a possibility.
So on this item, Frank, I would change it, based on what you're saying, Judge, I recommend we change it to say Veterans Capital Identity or Marketing, but it's really about our identity. It's not just the marketing piece. It's organizing the information that you discussed, and that we put over there that it would be a contingency, and you said 50,000, correct?
I have a proposed motion, Judge, if you're ready. Betsy, if you're ready, I can jump in with that. It would be to approve the inclusion of a total of $50,000 to to place in contingencies in the proposed FY23 budget for signage for El Paso being the Veterans Capital identity and marketing.
Betsy, did you not like that?
The only word I didn't like is signage, because it's not
Oh,
just
sorry,
signage.
excuse me.
It's for establishing the
Yeah.
identity.
You're right, I meant to delete that, excuse me, for El Paso
Yeah, because you're
being-
right, the signage was more going to be donated by individuals, sort of like the Korean signage that unfortunately hasn't gone up.
But it may be more than signage. You may do
Yeah.
signage, but it would be all the work
Exactly.
to back it up,
To
to
get
market it,
to that
to
point.
come up with a plan.
And we do have UTEP, was very, the history department looking at us, supporting that. Of course, we have Linda Mace, who is, the Elizabeth Dole representative that is doing a lot of work on that. I mean, just have a lot of work. It's just a matter of getting it all together, so.
Okay, so just the correction being, for El Paso being the Veterans Capital, including identity and marketing.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Holguín,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Commissioner Stout,
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson,
Aye.
Judge Samaniego.
Just want to thank you, because one of those very subtle things that it doesn't make sense until it happens kind of thing. So it's hard to conceptually, it's taken 3 years to even people understand conceptually how important this could be. So thank you. Aye.
Motion carries.
Are there any other items the court would like to discuss before we move forward? Hearing none, the only other item we wanted just to clarify and make sure that we're on board with, you do have a pending item on August 16th to have a second joint meeting with the UMC board. We just want to confirm you still plan to have that joint session with their board.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Holguín, you had talked about how important that would be.
No, I think that was actually Commissioner Stout's recommendation.
I would like to, if we
Okay.
can, still, yeah.
Yeah, but I think we had an agreement that it would be important.
Okay, because the court is having that meeting on the 16th, normally we do the tax rate hearings at the same time with UMC. We may do them at different times because they will not be, they won't be timeline aligned with us for our hearing. So we'll have our hearing on the 22nd. They will not be quite ready to have their hearing on the 22nd, from what I understand.
Oh, okay.
So they want to wait till the meeting of the 16th to hear your feedback before they propose a tax rate and have a hearing on it. So they'll be slightly misaligned from us on the tax rate hearings. And with that, do you all have any other items for the court?
Not at this time, Betsy. Thank you.
If I may, I think the budget register, if we can pull the budget register back up, just to recap where we're at.
It's on the screen.
Thank you. Wrong monitor. So with the changes that were made today, including the additional funds for Project Arriba, Crime Stoppers, Healthy Foods, and for the Veterans Capital Identity, our projected reserves is 5.82%. That's how we will close today out.
Yes.
Is there any questions on that balance? Okay, great.
Judge, Commissioners, we thank you so much for the direction and the action you've taken over these past couple days. That concludes our items. We will bring back the proposed budget or the recommended budget, as Jessica's mentioned, in September, and based on the direction you all have provided. And we thank you for your guidance and your direction.
No, thank you.
If I could just have a moment, please, to read in a couple of items to take no action. Item number 6, discuss and take appropriate action regarding the El Paso County Hospital District fiscal year 2023 proposed operating and capital budget and proposed tax rate. We will take no action on item 6. Item number 7, receive a presentation and discuss and take appropriate action on the fiscal year 2022-2023 budgets and property tax rates for emergency services districts 1 and 2. No action for this item as well. That completes all the items on our agenda, sir.
Well, thank you. And like I said, we're becoming more efficient, but extremely dedicated to do the right thing. So the commissioners, thank you for all your help and support on these discussions, and of course, budget and our auditors as well, and HR today and everyone else. So, and our translators back there, that thank you very much for being with us. So thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
This concludes today's meeting at 11:13 a.m.